How does composer Ilayaraja make background music like this, which speaks to your soul? In this episode, we'll see that and much more about the music of the film Aan Paavam. Welcome to the Suvai Sons channel. I'm Sukrish. To truly understand the role of Maestro Ilayaraja's music in this film, we can contrast it with a similar story which took the opposite approach for the music. Aan Paavam, written by director Pandiyarajan, is set in a Tamil village of India in the 1980s, and it keeps us wondering if these brothers will get these girls in the end. Pride and Prejudice, written by Jane Austen, is set in England in the 1800s and keeps us wondering if these sisters will get these men in the end. So the stories are somewhat similar, but their approaches to music are the opposite. In Pride and Prejudice, dances give young couples the opportunity to meet, fall in love, get married. There's music already in the scene. Or the characters are playing instruments in the story, in the scene. So this kind of music is called diegetic, which means music which arises from within the scene itself. It's part of the story. This leaves less room for the composer to write his own music for the story. They have to stick to music which was already in use in the 1800s, like Haydn or Mozart or country dance music, or they at least have to compose something very similar. And definitely they have to use the instruments which were in the culture and in the scenes. By contrast, in Aan Paavam, the potential groom goes from his village to her village to attend a pre-arranged meet the bride ceremony in the presence of her family. There are no musicians playing instruments at this meeting. This gives the composer an opportunity to take out his pen and write his own music for the scene. How should he do it? Should he stick to the instruments and musical styles found in this culture? Or can he use any instrument and any musical genres simply to tell the story? Composer Ilayaraja chose the second option. Now let's see what happens. The potential bride shyly walks out. And there's this kind of a movement, some kind of a gait in her walk, if you notice. I personally think that this might have inspired the composer to use the bass guitar to make this kind of sound. The bass guitar is not an Indian instrument. It is borrowed from Western popular music, but it highlights her very unique and hesitant walk. And the other part of this music was the veena. Now the veena is a very traditional Indian instrument used in classical music concerts. And the girl is very traditional too. She's wearing traditional clothes, she's keeping her head down, she looks obedient. Filmmakers have been using the veena sound over such women in many films, so the audience gets it when the veena sound comes on, that everybody in the gathering is approving of her traditional nature. Back to Pride and Prejudice, they deliberately use silence and no music to keep the emphasis on dialogues. The suvai or core beauty in Pride and Prejudice is that the audience must think about the hidden meanings in what was said and not said.
No, I beg your pardon, I would not wish to intrude upon your privacy.
I was just writing a letter to my sister Jane in London, that is all.
Oh.
Here here we are left wondering whether Mr. Darcy has romantic feelings for Elizabeth at this point. Silence is deliberately used to bring out the awkwardness. By contrast, in Aan Paavam, there's music on top of the dialogues. In this culture, the characters speak in shorter sentences, more emotionally and directly with less sarcasm. So the composer is able to put music on top of the dialogues to convey that some chemistry is blossoming. Notice the shape of this tune. It has a shape which fits these words. A lyricist may do a better job than me, but I'm using these as substitute words to reveal a hidden pattern. Now listen to this music in this scene where she believes that the wedding will actually go ahead and happen. A flute tune is heard, and this tune has the same shape as the tune which we heard during the coffee serving scene, and we know this because it fits the same words. It has the same shape, but the notes have slightly changed. Earlier, the tune started like he was actually sitting close by. Now the tune has a variation. Now it starts like. Now he's physically distant from her. Not only that, now she wants to possess him officially, and so he seems very distant until they actually tie the knot. So now the composer has increased the distance between the first two notes. The first version, this is the distance. The second version, this is the distance. They are 12 keys apart, and this distance or interval is called 1 octave. This 1 octave musical distance seems to convey physical distance between people, and this greater distance speaks to your soul. But this is actually a trick from a composer's bag of tricks. Stay until the end of the video. I'll show you more examples of this 1 octave distance trick. But now, one last comparison. When Mr. Darcy feels rejected, there's no music.
You were the last man in the world whom I could ever marry.
You have said quite enough, madam. I perfectly comprehend your feelings.
But when Periyapandi gets rejected, there's a lot of loud background score going on. This is a sad variation on the same love theme. And when they use loud violins and chords, there's so much going on at the same time that it feels heavy and sad. Overall, the music in Aan Paavam creates something which is not there in the Pride and Prejudice adaptations. What is that something? Remember how we felt confused about Mr. Darcy's intentions in this scene? If there was a narrator in that scene saying things like, and Mr. Darcy was there to convey his romantic feelings, then we would have gotten it for sure. But there was no such narration in the Pride and Prejudice adaptations. Only in the book they had such narrations. But in the case of Aan Paavam, the suvai or core beauty of its music is that the music acts as a narrator. Right now, a chemistry is blossoming. Right now, they're falling in love. Right now they're having heartbreak. Composer Ilayaraja has used this 1 octave distance trick in this song to convey a distance between the characters. She's singing come close because he's far away. And he's also used this one octave trick in this song